It's the last day of the month, guys. What can I say? I'm feeling a little rich. Uh, you understand the feeling, presumably. Just let me be. Let me wear my sunglasses, sitting alone in my room. No sunlight. I know it's a little silly, but it is what it is. Let me also welcome you and introduce you to this new series that I'm going to do from here on. It's the We Need to Talk About series. Uh, we look to discuss any topics that are controversial, any topics that are raging hot, any topics that are difficult to fathom or understand for all of us, at least for me, because I speak for myself here mostly, always. Uh, but the thing is, the very first topic that I want to start with, keeping in line with the Premier League, its popularity, and the most dominant force that we've seen in the last decade, we need to talk about Manchester City today. The recent history tells us that after the acquisition, which was back in I think '07 or '08, this club was slowly finding its steps, hiring and firing, trial and error with the recruitment, but eventually they got it right. And 2012 was probably one of the greatest endings that we've seen to a Premier League season, winning the title on the last day. Aguero! We all know that. We all remember Martin Tyler. And that was just bizarre. That was truly legendary. And we have to understand that that was a significant change in plot for the Premier League. The halls of power had experienced a sudden shake-up, and Manchester City had arrived. Of course, they had. They won another title in 2014. Manuel Pellegrini, much love to the guy. I absolutely adore him and respect him. He is so good and so underrated tactically. I understand that that was a bit of a blip season overall because not all of the top clubs were performing at their very best. We were seeing a lot of transition with Manchester United. Sir Alex Ferguson had left in 2013. We were seeing transition with Chelsea with the botched AVB attempt and then bringing Mourinho back in. So they were also in the transition process. Arsenal was just sort of holding on to things as best they could. And Liverpool and Brendan Rodgers were just trying to get their feet, just trying to find their feet. So 2014 was also a sort of, very fortunate, title win for City. I'm not saying that they got lucky, but a lot of things fell into place for them. And Pellegrini was in the right place at the right time. Let's just leave it at that. But City had arrived. And what they went and did in 2016 is they appointed probably one of the greatest coaches of the modern era as their manager. So this was no longer about City's arrival. This was about City standing on the rooftop of the tallest building in the city and saying, you know what? Your time is up and my time is now. You can't see me. Yeah, I know that's a lame WWE reference, but you get the point. So, this is a little bit about Man City's recent history, right? And now we have to move on to the next topic, which is Pep Guardiola, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm a Real Madrid fan, by the way. I keep stressing on these things when the time is right and when I feel like I have to give that reference because I'm talking about Pep Guardiola. I'm probably going to be waxing lyrical about the man for the next few minutes. And it might pain me as a Madrid fan, but at the end of the day, I'm always going to be a football fan first. So I have to do right by the game. Everything else comes later. Think of the impact this man had in his very first season at Barcelona. 6 trophies. First season as a manager. One of the greatest squads ever assembled. Unprecedented is what it is. Real Madrid did the same thing with Zidane in the 16-17 season, but they had 5 trophies. I believe they lost out on the Copa del Rey. Guardiola had all 6 in his first season. The world was not ready for this man. The world was not ready for this team. It took a Herculean effort by Jose Mourinho to stop him in his tracks in 2010 when Inter Milan and Barcelona went head to head. Otherwise, this man would have done what Madrid did later with the unprecedented run of three Champions League trophies, 2016, 17, and 18. This guy was already almost there in 2009 and 2010 and 2011. Just that one semi final, just that one Jose Mourinho and one Inter Milan that stood between him and that feat. Sir Alex Ferguson has spoken at length about him and his teams and how they pass you to death and that how he felt. Sir Alex Ferguson, the magnanimity of the man, he came out and said, we were totally helpless. We were totally lost. We didn't know how to deal with this side. 2011 was probably even better than 2009 in terms of the squad and the quality and how that game had evolved. The world was not ready for tiki taka, but the world rallied. The world came back. The world had to come back. The rest of the world, at least. So we saw how 2012 Jose Mourinho came back with a title win for Real Madrid in La Liga, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. I want to stick to Pep Guardiola. The guy didn't waste too much time. Once his stint at Barcelona was over, he moved on to Bayern Munich. He went on to do beautiful things with that club as well. Although to be fair, we were starting to see some chinks in the armor there also. In fact, from there onwards, he wasn't able to do the things that he did with Barcelona in the Champions League. That trophy maybe eluded him, and that's something that's lingered on and has allowed people to question his greatness. Although, why is this guy not able to win a Champions League after Barcelona? Why is this guy not able to win a Champions League without Messi, Iniesta, and Xavi? Mix, if you want to call it that. But of course, Bayern Munich continued his greatness. He was able to play some amazing football. We at Real Madrid, by the way, destroyed them in the Champions League with Carlo Ancelotti, and obviously we went on to win our La Decima. But again, I digress. I want to come back to Pep Guardiola and the journey, the path that he was continuing on. After Bayern Munich and his time was up there, he decided to arrive at Manchester City in the summer of 2016. Bear in mind that this is the same time that Jose Mourinho was appointed as United coach. We already had Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. I believe, without again digressing too much, the Premier League has gone from strength to strength and has seen some of its dizzying heights in the last decade because of the quality of coaches. Maybe not so much because of the players. Of course, yes, them, players who are all important when it comes to implementing the vision on the pitch. But trust me, the coaches, Pep Guardiola, absolutely crazy. The impact that this man has had on football, tiki taka, bringing that sort of Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff legacy to the forefront, and us seeing its full impact, us seeing tiki taka in its full glory. I mean, you can go on, but we need to talk about Manchester City. So Pep Guardiola coming to Manchester City in the summer of 2016, stumbling a bit, finding his way. The Premier League isn't exactly a cakewalk, nor should it be. It's one of the hardest leagues in the world. And he didn't see that sort of success that he had seen in his first season at Barcelona. Certainly not. Nor did he see the kind of success that he'd seen with Bayern Munich. But he was finding his way. The man always finds a way. Made the right kind of recruitments in 2017, took a step back, renewed, recharged, recalibrated, of course, brought in the right type of players that he wanted. And then obviously, we all know what happened from there. The 2017-2018 season, the 2018-2019 season, the battles that this club has had, that this man has had with Tottenham, with Liverpool, the domination in 17-18, the winning of the league by just a fraction in 2018, 2019 against Jurgen Klopp. I mean, these stories are what legends are made of. These stories define an era. There was a blip in 2019, 2020. And then, of course, that was during the year of the pandemic, where Liverpool, I believe, won the league by a margin of 25, 30 points, unprecedented. But again, the man that is Pep Guardiola finds a way. He came back in 2020, and then the 2020-2021 season, the 21-22 season, the legacy continues, the domination continues. The man is steady as a surgeon. The hand just doesn't shake. He's just that good. Although, to be fair, and again, we have to acknowledge this, defining an era, the battles of City and Liverpool. Liverpool missed out by again just 1 point last season. But again, it is what it is. City had all of those titles. I wanted it to be a little more fair and balanced because football needs that. The halls of power demand balance in order for sustenance. But we didn't have that. In the last 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, Klopp has four, oh sorry, my bad. Klopp has one and Pep Guardiola has four titles. Unprecedented. So that is something that we've all witnessed. But that brings me to the current season, and that is why we need to talk about this club. What has gone so wrong at Manchester City? Sounds a little silly, right? They're still in the Champions League, they're still in the FA Cup, they're second in the Premier League. Then why would I be saying something like, what has gone wrong at Manchester City? We need to talk about Manchester City. Doesn't make sense, does it? But just think about it. Take a step back. Think about it. They brought in a prodigious talent in Erling Haaland, who was probably going to define the next generation and the next era alongside Kylian Mbappe and maybe even Vinicius Jr. And the way that this guy got off to a start was incredible. I don't really know what went wrong for cities, but something went wrong along the way. And that's what we're trying to analyze today. What went wrong along the way? Because they've just not been themselves since the World Cup ended. There were a few bumps in the road. And of course, we have to talk about how United found their way back, how Arsenal has been so strong and so steady for the most part. But why has Manchester City and the surgeon that is Pep Guardiola, why has that hand sort of started wavering this season? Is it because he's trying to change the system, he's trying to adapt, he's trying to evolve, and that evolution isn't working out? He's brought in Erling Haaland. He's tried to change the system. It was working wonders before the World Cup. They were linking the midfield with the forward line. They were able to see the runs that Erling Haaland was making. They were able to give him that through ball or that killer ball that any striker wants, and he was able to finish. But what changed after the World Cup? The evidence is there for all to see. This guy is visibly frustrated on the pitch every time he steps onto it now with the rest of his team. I don't know for what reason City continues to play the 1,000 passes that Guardiola has always wanted. We agree. We know that this is how Guardiola wants to play the game. This is how Tiki Taka demands the game be played. We understand that. But you brought in Erling Haaland. Klopp brought in an Alcantara because he wanted to evolve from Jejen pressing and high intensity football to maybe a little possession based. So he was trying to maybe emulate a little bit of the Guardiola and the tiki taka tactics. And in that sense, Guardiola was maybe also evolving and trying to emulate some of that tactics that Klopp has, with the number 9, with the center forward. And maybe going a little old school, maybe not taking a step back, but taking a step back so that he could take 2 steps forward. I think this is what he was trying to do. And I believe that it was working out. But again, I keep coming back to the point. I don't know what's gone wrong after the World Cup. This is just not the same team. Losses to United, losses to Liverpool, Losses to, you know, not exactly a loss, but this was a draw against Nottingham City. I mean, there's so many things that you can point out, and there are times when they dominate and they just blow you away. They won't let you get a sniff of the ball. All the best to you and your team if City is up 2 nil or 3 nil. All the best to you, and God help you. But we have to talk about the blips. There's just been too many. There is a lack of consistency. There is such a thing known as too much tactics. There is such a thing known as overcomplicating. You need to simplify. You brought in Haaland, you brought in Alvarez. Simplify the game. Why aren't you doing that, Mr. Guardiola? Begs the question. And we need to also consider the fact that this man knows what he's doing. We have to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's proven it in the past. We also have to consider the fact that maybe Haaland was brought in as a sniper or as an assassin for one job only, and that is maybe still winning the Champions League. So we'll see how it goes from there, or we'll see how it goes from here. But currently, there are question marks. There are points that require validation, and we're all left a little uncertain about what's happening with City this season. We need to understand, we need to talk about it. Why are they failing to dominate the way that they have in past seasons? Of course, time changes, time is a variable, right? So you have Arsenal, that's, as we've discussed earlier, that's come back into the picture, and how you have teams like Brighton and Fulham knocking at the door of Europa League, and we've seen how unpredictable the Premier League can be. You have Everton languishing in the relegation zone. So a lot of things have gone a little awry this season, and I'm not going to place all of the blame on Guardiola here. I do have to talk about some of the players as well. The inconsistencies that we've seen with De Bruyne, maybe he's just not the same. Gundogan, maybe the midfield needs some replacements there. Rodri's been fantastic. We also have to talk about injury issues with Phil Foden. We have to talk about Jack Grealish not being able to deliver consistently. And of course, we've spoken at length about Erling Haaland, and why they've not been able to utilize him as much in 2023 at least. So I want to close the chat, or the discussion with just one final thought, and that's how we like to typically do it, which is, where do we go from here, Manchester City? What does the rest of your season look like? A lot of uh, Manchester City fans stand steadfast in their belief that you all are still going to win the league. Who knows? If Arsenal slip up, if you go on one of those hazy, unbeaten runs, I don't know. I don't see it happening this season, though. The Premier League is too unpredictable, and so are you. Uh, do I see you winning an FA Cup? Maybe. You're not in the Carabao Cup, and obviously United has won that, so that's pointless to bring up. Uh, Champions League. That's that's a real nail biter. What's going to happen to you in the Champions League? Every season since the last 4 or 5 seasons, you've been the bookie's favorite for some weird reason that nobody can explain. But okay, are you going to achieve something in the Champions League this season? Are you going to come back from, not come back, but are you going to dominate Leipzig at home and then go on to dominate the league as well, the Champions League? Knockout competitions have typically been an Achilles heel for Guardiola ever since Tiki Taka was sort of found out in 2010 by Mourinho, and then from there on by the rest of the clubs in Europe, since his time at Bayern Munich, and then obviously at Manchester City. So I'm left with a lot of questions. This wasn't so much an analysis, this was almost a rant with my sunglasses on, and I have to ask all of you City fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Take care.